Dr. Clark here. I want to explain to you, kind of to demystify the situation about celiac disease. Celiac disease is one kind of gluten sensitivity. It is not the only kind of gluten sensitivity. And I hope that makes sense. The reason I'm bringing this point up is I probably see 30 to 50 people a month that tell me, oh, I've been tested for gluten. I don't have celiac, so I'm fine. And what that tells me is the doctors that they've seen don't really understand what celiac means. So let me just kind of give you an explanation. Gluten, okay, gluten is a protein that's found in wheat and barley and rye. But that's not the only part, first off, it's not the only part of the wheat that you could have an immune system reaction to. There's something called wheat germ agglutinin that's associated with having very bad joint pains. You could have a reaction to glutenin. You could have a reaction to gliadin. You could have a reaction to the different isomers of gliadin, which is something we could get into another time. So that's gluten sensitivity. When you have a reaction to an immune system reaction to any part of that gluten and any part of the wheat, you can have gluten sensitivity. Now, when that leads to an autoimmune attack on your small intestine, now we're getting into this thing called celiac disease. Now really, to be diagnosed with celiac disease, depending on where you live and depending on the doctor you see, you have to have a small intestine biopsy. And what they basically have to see is villus atrophy and a bunch of other stuff. But just so you know, there's research to show very convincingly that a lot of people that have gluten sensitivity and even may have celiac disease, okay, don't have a positive small bowel biopsy. So that's really kind of a non-useful criteria. However, when you go to see your medical doctor or the gastroenterologist and you have a variety of symptoms, it could be that you've got GI symptoms. Maybe you have constipation, diarrhea, you've got unexplained weight loss, you've got blood in the stool. It could be those sorts of things. Or you could be seeing someone because you have infertility, or you've got joint pain, or you've got seizures or migraines or any other stuff that could be related to gluten sensitivity. Well, what they typically do is they'll run an antibody test. They'll run like an anti-endomysial antibody test. And what that's supposed to show, if negative, is that you don't have celiac and so you don't have a gluten problem. Oh, wrong. That's one test. It's not the only test. The results of that anti-endomysial antibody test or any of those other tests they run for celiac disease don't mean, if they're negative, that you don't have a problem with gluten. Because guess what? There's all those other things you can have a problem with. Remember the glutenin, the gliadin, the wheat germ agglutinin. You can have a problem with those things and not have celiac disease. I hope that's making sense, because I see a lot of people that have 5 years ago, 2 years ago, been tested for celiac disease and been told they don't have a problem with gluten, and so they keep on eating it. It just destroys their health. I see a lot of people with a variety of autoimmune conditions that have led to infertility or Hashimoto's, low thyroid, or multiple sclerosis, and they've been tested in the past and told that they don't have a problem, and that is just absolutely not the thing to be telling people. So I hope you understand that. Now, the best way to get tested for gluten sensitivity is from a lab called Cyrex Labs. It's currently the best way to find out. However, I'm going to go ahead and save you some time and money. Just go gluten-free. And don't just go, for a couple of weeks and see how you do. You really need to go, forever, because it's not going to hurt you to go off of it. A lot of people have an opiate peptide problem with gluten, which means when they eat gluten, it turns into an opiate like heroin, and so they become addicted to it. There's a bunch of stuff there. So those people tend to have a little harder time getting off of gluten than other people. But if you really just want to save your money, just go gluten-free. There's no biological reason for you to eat gluten anyway. So a lot of this stuff that we talk about in terms of testing for gluten is really just kind of a little bit of, it's superfluous. It's not really necessary. You could just get off of it and feel better anyway. But please don't think that if you've been tested and your doctor has told, well, you don't have celiac disease, that you don't have a gluten problem. Could be a terrible, terrible mistake to make. The best thing to do is to get tested comprehensively for all the different things that you could be sensitive to. Of course, you got to find a doctor who understands that, someone who will be able to do it for you. Or you could just go gluten-free forever anyway. And I would be surprised if you didn't feel somewhat better. It may not be the thing that totally turns your life around, but you'd be surprised. I get tons of emails every month of people saying, I went gluten-free, my life has totally changed, I feel so much better. which is cool. But the takeaway is celiac is one type of gluten sensitivity, not the only type. So you got to make sure you get correctly tested and find a doctor who understands it.